Alright, so we have the topic here. Now, it's actually a bit of a mixed bag of various things, but initially it was supposed to be concentrated on the report of the high-level committee, which was in 2011 to 2012, which was the idea of the then Railway Minister Dinesh Trivedi, but I thought it was better to go into the review to that and some other things after that. So, I will of course assume everyone can read this, so I don't have to read through everything else. Now, certainly the media perception of railway safety is a bit funny because sometimes which is something which I have been following a bit. Now, whenever there is a sequence of not very big accidents, but in the big cities or nearby, then the press and TV channels make a lot of noise. But if there are some serious accidents, a lot of casualties in some remote part of the country, then they hardly get any coverage. And those who follow these things must have seen notice that. Anyway, the fact remains that if you look at the statistics which the railways put out, there has been a very drastic fall from 2000 odd in 1966 to 177 in 2008. And of course, people may say that the accident rate per million train kilometers, so that has also shown a very big decline, which is creditable, but the public probably doesn't give the railway that credit. More recent trends, if you look more carefully at the 2000s, the number of accidents, now this is all as per the railway's own statistics, and there has been a further decline. But somehow the popular press still say that there are a lot of things wrong with safety and more needs to be done about it. Now, other points to note that even when the railways have the statistics, it doesn't include who are run-off or fell-off crowded trains. Like you see the annual reports of the Commissioner of Railway Safety, these things are generally not covered. And on the other hand, the railway statistics include some very small things of some derailment of a goods wagon which might have interrupted traffic for 1 hour or so. So that's also counted, although these things won't come in the press. Okay, now this is probably something which is a bit difficult to grasp if you're not familiar with it. Now, in each division and zone, there are people called the safety officers, although that is more or less a collection of collating statistics. They don't have an active role. And you may have heard that often if it's a small enough accident, then it is investigated by the people at the divisional or zonal level. Like if it pertains to some track defect, then somebody from the engineering department will be looking at it. If it's a defect in a loco or a coach or wagon, then the mechanical department looks into it, and so on. Anyway, there is something called the Chief Commissioner of Railway Safety, and you might have wondered that what on earth it has got to do with the Ministry of Civil Aviation. And the story of this is also fairly well known. Now, the present railways, in the form with the Railway Board and so on, came into existence in 1903. Before that, the railways were generally supervised by the PWD. Okay, anyway, till the 1930s, whatever safety inspectorate had various names, they came under the railways. Now, in the late 1930s, the XP locos, which the older ones of you would have probably still seen XP locos running at least on Southern Railway, at least till around 1970s the XPs were there. Now, this was quite notorious when the XP, XC and XP started running in around 1930. In particular, the XP had some design defect which called hunting, which means swaying from side to side, which meant it had a strong tendency to cause derailments. You have probably vaguely heard of something called the Beta derailment of 1937, which is a place, small station near Patna, which essentially was due to this design defect of the XP locos. There was a lot of inquiry after that, and experts from Britain were called to study the study the problems of the XP loco and so on. And result, they said that the Railway Safety Organization should be under something which is not under the railways. And just for a namesake, it was put under the Ministry of Communications, and sometime later it was just Tourism and Civil Aviation, and today it is just Civil Aviation. However, all the officers who are working in this Commission of Railway Safety, which head offices in Lucknow, they are people who have been working in the railway service for many years, and they switch themselves there. So most of the officers there are anyway railway officers from mainly mechanical as far as I know, and some from civil and others. Perhaps these points Mr. Anand may correct me if I am wrong later on. So that is the thing, there is a nominally independent agency with investigation teams. And they are following every major accident, they have recommendations which are sometimes there are a lot of comments that this comment is not accepted by Northern Railway or whatever it is, and sometimes it is accepted by Northern Railway but not accepted by Railway Board, and various combinations like that are there. But anyway, that's how it works here. Now, there have been various high-level inquiry commissions, generally conducted by judges. There are things like the 1-2 Commission and Khanna Commission and so on. Now, although it is possible to locate these things in some university libraries and so on, but they have not received much coverage in the press. Okay, coming back to the modern times, as you can see, the then Railway Minister, Dinesh Trivedi, ordered the setting up of a high-level commission. Now, what happened here was, instead of it being headed by a judge with some help from the railways, here they got all the senior, major technical experts who were not very much connected with the railways. It was headed by Dr. Anil Kapotkar, who is considered to be the leading nuclear engineer in India, and was basically heading the department until a couple of years ago. There was Dr. S.T. Jhande, the director of IIT Kanpur. There was also Mr. Sridharan, the metro man. Although it should be remembered that much of his career was spent as a civil engineer on Southern Railway before he got into the Western Railway, and a few other senior engineers of Department of Academy. The idea was to have a look into the railways from technical experts who are not part of the railway hierarchy. I mean, that was the general idea. And thankfully, this particular report came out in early 2012, and as far as I know, it is still available on the website, and it can even be downloaded to study at your leisure. So hopefully it is still there, and the website address is there. Subsequently, I intend to this will be put up on the somewhere on the IRFC, so whoever wants to look up these references can look it up there. So this is a report of about 120 pages. It's by and large, it's quite easy reading. So if you're really interested in this topic, I suggest you do read it. Now, there is a very large number of issues have been covered, so I just try to cover things which are maybe more interesting. Comprehensive review of safety and many suggestions were made. One point was that traffic was increasing rapidly and relatively stress on improving infrastructure. So investment, particularly for civil engineering side, particularly renewal of old bridges and improved signaling. Now, what may not be very obvious to the layman is that the number of deaths is quite high at level crossings, both unmanned and manned. By and large, at unmanned crossings, it is due to the negligence of road users. In many cases, even the CRS does not even bother to conduct an inquiry, though there is a rule that if any passenger is killed or severely injured in such an accident, then an inquiry is conducted. When the only casualties are from the bus or truck or whatever it is, then they may not even bother. They will just note down that there was an accident, so many people were killed. That's criminal. And it was due to negligence of the road user. Now, there are also a few level accidents at manned level crossings. In some cases, it is due to some mistake by the gateman or other railway staff. So action is taken against the personal railway staff there. But there are other reasons. In some parts of India, it is not unknown for people in that part coming, they find the level crossing closed, then they beat up the gateman and force open the gate and they enter the track and then a train hits the track. And there are quite a few cases where the gates are closed, but the truck or bus is running at a high speed and they crash through the gate and crash into a train or something like that. So, if you look at it more carefully, then it would be a good idea not to have level crossing at all. And even managed level crossing is not a panacea because some additional capital costs are there and the recurring labor costs are going to be there. Because in most of the major lines it has to be run 24 hours and even you might have to run it in 2 or 3 shifts. Sometimes you run 24 hours in 2 shifts, but that is probably feasible only in a line with less traffic. But if you got something on the golden corridor and you know the volume of traffic on something like Delhi Mathura or Nagpur Wardha or even Chennai Vijayawada, so the job of a gateman on there is pretty strenuous, and I don't think even 8 hours your duty might be quite a bit. That's why even in the air traffic controllers at the airports, I think they restrict working out to just an 8-hour work. So the thing is that one solution to avoid a lot of deaths is just abolish level crossing both manned and unmanned, either replace them by underbridge or overbridge. This is one of the main points of this hydrogen commission. And they have done a numerical thing that if you abolish them, and then you won't need so many gatemen, therefore the saving is so much. And they have also looked at the cost aspects. Of course, I am not in a position to say whether the accounting calculations were correct, but the basic idea seems to be that at least along main lines, the things, the level crossings have to be totally abolished and replaced by underbridges and overbridges. And on the less important lines, try to abolish them, but if that's not feasible right away, do something like shutting down some of the unmanned crossings and combining the 2 or 3 unmanned crossings into one manned crossing so that there is slightly better control. But as you know, in rural areas, it's a bit difficult to prevent people crossing, even tractors and all that, crossing the tracks, even if there's no crossing, and there have been accidents because of that. So, that is what I told you right now. Now, then the other thing is signaling. Now, frequent cause of accidents have been that the loco pilots overrun signals, thereby causing collisions or derailments. Now, of course, it is not there's a tendency to straight away blame the loco pilots for everything, which I'm sure we have some friends here who will have something to say about that. But let us just say that there are various reasons. Now, in Western countries where modernization has taken place, in-cab signaling is there. So, you are not depending on whether the NP can see the trackside signals, but because he will be having some kind of digital display or something or other in the cab. So, he knows if it's a red signal or something, it clearly is indicated in his cab. So, the chance of making a mistake is greatly limited. Other technology, now the GPS, as you know, the Konkan Railway management has been promoting a GPS-based system, but obviously the other zonal railways have tried it out a bit, but they don't seem to be very happy about it. Now, those of you who understand these communications a bit will have probably seen some flaws. Now, most of you are familiar how a GPS works. Now, supposing the funda behind this is that I am driving a loco and which has a GPS on it. There's a train in front of me, that loco or large van has a GPS on it. So basically, there is some kind of microprocessor which figures out what's the distance between my train and the train in front of me, and if it comes to less than 1 km or something, then an alarm sounds. Now, those of you who have played around with GPS will know that they are not that accurate. One thing can come that 1 kilometer ahead of you, another train is standing on a loop line. But it might still give a signal that you're too close to the other train and tell you to stop. Now, which would certainly cause a lot of problem in the operations. Other obvious point, if it's a double track and something is approaching you, the GPS will not be smart enough to figure out that it's a different track, so it will probably give an alarm then. So, I suppose with very advanced microelectronics and or software, such things could be looked at, but apparently they are not quite completed. So, a GPS-based thing has its limitations. Alright, Jim. Now, there are probably some people who know more about these things. I'd invite their comments after this. But however, on the metros and heavy suburban systems like in Mumbai, we have got a variety of automated systems, but nothing to do with GPS, which do seem to work by and large quite satisfactorily. And there are many metro systems all over the world, which I have seen personally in Vancouver in Canada more than 20 years back, which are running without a driver of the metro system. It's fully automated and computer controlled, and they hardly have any accidents. And I'm told that in some of these places in Europe and America, it is fully computer controlled, but just one of the railway staff sits in the cab to reassure the public that there is a driver there, because people might feel a bit uneasy if there is nobody in the cab. And those who are traveling in Europe and America lately might like to say something more about this later on. Okay, human resources. That the railways themselves have been complaining about the shortage of staff in the so-called safety-related functions, the traffic side as well as engineering. And that means ASM guards as well as people who maintain the track, including PWI and people below them. Another interesting point. Now, the people who have been in railways for a long time know that until some years back, you could only become a DM or a DRM if you had active experience in running, which means that effectively meant that traffic departments, mechanical and civil department. Whether that was a correct thing or not, I don't know, but it is, I think, theoretically possible for even an accounts officer to become a DRM or DM now. So the question then is that now even in the army and so on, generally you're not going to become a general or an admiral or an air marshal or a senior position unless you have actually been involved, if not in an actual war, but you have at least been heading a combat division in the Army, Navy or Air Force. So the same logic can be that you should only become a DRM and DM if you have had some active role in running the rails, which is not true if you are in the commercial or account section. Now, this is a slightly controversial point, but anyway, this is one point which we didn't know. And there's some other thing about restructuring management, like things like in the railway board, you have got typically 5 or 6 members, like apart from the chairman, there's member traffic, member staff, member electrical, mechanical, and so on. So that the safety aspect should be more strongly represented at the board level and at the zonal level. And of course, at the divisional level also some revamping could be done. Another minor point, but it's not as minor as it sounds, you all know how the toilets work in the railways, and the discharging of toilet using a tracks that has been found to cause serious pollution in some places, and a more human problem is that the people who are doing the track maintenance are affected by it and they may not be doing their work properly because of the dirty conditions in the track. So there are plenty of ways in which this can be solved, which obviously all these, the aviation industry have various things, just a plain storage tank or chemical toilets that have been used at various places. So these things could have been solved long back. So if this is there, we may presume that track maintenance problems might be solved to some extent. Managerial issues, again, since you're probably running short of time, just briefly mention that in the US there's something called the National Transportation Safety Board. Now in India, as we said, the Commissioner of Railway Safety is very nominally not under the railways, but for all practical purposes it is. Then you should have something which has truly got nothing to do with the railways or aviation for that matter. Now, the NTSB in the US is a totally different thing, part of the federal government, which has got nothing to do with the railways or the aviation industry or the road transport industry. It may have representatives from these bodies, but comes under the federal government, so there be not those who are having a thorough knowledge of the aviation industry might know that the aviation industry has also done a bit, tried to manipulate it a bit, but at least it's not as bad as in India, where manipulation both from the railways and aviation industry is generally understood to have hampered efforts in improving safety. And the newspapers write all sorts of things, most of which are not very well informed, but I just try to give a true picture. And of course, some people may have some additional comments. Now, tailpiece is that the report came out in, I think, March 2012, by which time Mr. Dinesh Trivedi was no longer a railway minister. Without getting into details, there has been a heavy turnover of railway ministers after that. And basically, not much interest has been there. And for a variety of reasons, it would seem that the railway board and people there have also felt that many of the things are not practical, but essentially you may say that everyone is free to read this report, but it is not very clear what is being done about it. Now, we have 2 or 3 minutes left, then there is a website of CCRS, those who are really interested can look at it. Just, I think I've given a link somewhere else, just to say that whoever is running it is not doing a very good job, because the most recent annual report as of today is 2010, and they've given some preliminary reports of accidents up to 2012. So I guess they think the public doesn't care about it. I've been tempted to make an RTI application to make them put more recently, or of course anyone else can do it. Now, if anyone wanted to study this, as most of you are probably aware, there is a book of mine which is readily available on Flipkart and Amazon and so on. And what I have done is that basically collated whatever information the railway has provided and a bit of newspaper reports. So we try to put a thing that at least 5 injured or 10 injured or derailment or damage to a specified number of locos have been reported. So based on that, this book of mine, in this 10-year period, we have 400 accidents of there. And I've also written another book on a worldwide thing, which is not so detailed, but those who are interested can also have a look at that. Now, again, the broad thing, we'll just go through that. Human error is a critical point. The general public is also quite often at fault. Rail fractures and rail fractures seem to be showing, it's not an upward trend, but definitely they are quite significant. Collisions due to poor visibility, some steps have been done to do, and that is why trains on the Delhi Mumbai section are running several hours late, but it seems you have to do that because otherwise safety is compromised. Sabotage is a common feature, at least in some parts of the country, but it's growing. Like, whether we like it or not, insurgency movements of various kinds are going on in different parts of the country. Generally, the most serious accident collision and derailment was actually found it, the level crossings are causing more casualties. Double track collisions are liable to cause high casualties. The most recent major one was the National Express near Kharagpur in 2010. And sometimes it happens. Now, sometimes these accidents could have been prevented by better communication, but it has also been cases where a derailment has happened, the train line is fouled, and within about 5 seconds another train comes and lands into it. So no one can really help in such cases. Sabotage, well, patrolling is there, checking of baggage is there, but I think if you have seen any major railway station in India, if you start checking everyone's baggage on a long distance train, I don't think any train is going to run on time. Now, these are the things I collated. Just killed and injured may not be so important, but the numbers are interesting that it dropped down in 2004, 2005 and started rising again. So, I don't know what interpretation you can make on that, but it's just interesting. Okay. Just to say that there are a number of accidents which there were some interesting features in that, but I guess we have to stop here. I think we can have a couple of minutes for to take questions or if anyone has comments. Anyone? Yes?
Yeah. Couple of points. Even DMRC runs trains without, they do have a driver in the front, but the drivers are not used. Each driver runs only one service per day, which is in manual mode. All other services are auto trained.
So you would say that the automation is good enough that they can
run? So DMRC does not use drivers.
Yeah.
But in a captive, it cannot be done on a mainline with so many.
Now, we were talking about local.
And indeed, even in 1991 or so, in some cities in US and Canada, definitely it was running like that.
Right. About the toilet that you mentioned, so RDSO is considering two designs, one by IIT Kanpur and the other by DRDO. The DRDO design seems to be winning right now in the railway board, but they're still experimenting with both, and hopefully we'll have some decision soon on that. One interesting thing that I wanted to mention was all these railway crossings, the level crossings. Not all of them are kind of owned by railways. For example, the one at IIT Kanpur gate, we pay for its maintenance and running and the salary of the guy and everything.
But the staff is obviously from the railways.
The staff is of railways, but we pay their salary, we pay the maintenance, we pay the whole thing.
So ultimately, IIT Kanpur might have to do something about the overbridge or underbridge there.
Right, so we are actually thinking of closing that. The last thing I wanted to ask a question was, will it ever be possible to have local trains which can run with doors closed?
If
He's coming in Mumbai.
yes.
Yeah, one rake is coming to the.
If there heavy crowding, I don't see why, but
it's already happening in
Delhi
Metro.
Metro is okay, Mumbai local.
If crowding was less, I don't know, from what little I have seen, the Chennai suburban systems are probably not so crowded. This probably would be a good place to start. Alright, any more comments or questions? Yeah.
Sir, you are telling that LCs should be closed.
It should be abolished, yes.
Yeah, should be abolished. In that case, either there should be underpass or there should be overbridge.
That's the idea.
Right? But sometime long ago, when there was during the conversion of this Banaswadi, Salem, MG line, that the Lingarajpuram railway gate was closed. There was a lot of unrest among the people. They got
And
then despite construction of overbridge, I believe still the gate is being used.
It is supposed to be locked, but somehow. Yes, and in rural areas, it is also common that if you've got a tractor or something and the gate is closed, they will somehow try to take it across the tracks, some distance away from the level crossing. All these tricks the public play, which they should not be that foolish. Alright, in that case, probably I can close now. We can discuss and understand later if anyone is. So, the next person can take over.